NRHA Hall of Fame honors horses and humans who've made an impact on the world of reining. It's important to note that any NRHA member can nominate a person or a horse for Hall of Fame consideration. The Hall of Fame is a means of honoring the members whose efforts without whose efforts NRHA, as we know it anyway, could not exist. It is meant to honor contributions to the enjoyment and improvement of reining by outstanding individuals. Our first inductee has made her mark on this association as a rider, as an owner, as a breeder, and as a trailblazer, and she may be the most frequently honored woman in the Western horse world. If there were a Hall of Fame, Carol Rose just might be in it. Her achievements have already earned her membership in the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame and the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame, as well as the AQHA, NRCHA, NCHA, and now NRHA Halls of Fame. Carol inherited her love of equines from her mother, Elizabeth, growing up in Palo Alto, California. She learned how to work as a regular hand on her grandfather's cattle ranch, won her first trophy at the age of 8, and went on to show in just about every discipline there was. In the NRHA, Carol's titles include the Lazy E Classic, NRBC, and NRHA Derby. She was honored as AQHA Professional Horsewoman of the Year in 1998. As an owner, Carol has earned 28,000 AQHA points, 49 AQHA World and Reserve World Championships, 13 all-around titles, and more than $3 million, 600,000 of that in the NRHA. She made it to the winner's circle of reining's most elite event, the NRHA Futurity Open Championship, twice. First in 1985 with Sparkles Rosanna ridden by Craig Johnson, and then again in 2008 with Shining and Sassy under Hall of Fame member Tim McQuay. Carol Rose is the AQHA's #1 all-time leading breeder of performance horses, and in the NRHA she has had a major impact, especially on the distaff side with her $4 million sire Shining Spark. He's already a member of the NRHA Hall of Fame, along with his dam, Diamond Sparkle. And Carol Rose did it all in an industry dominated by men, leaving a legacy of success for future generations of aspiring cowgirls. Congratulations to Carol Rose as she joins two of her great horses in the NRHA Hall of Fame. And here to make our Hall of Fame presentation this evening is author, equestrian, businesswoman, and just all-around hand, Cheryl Cody.
You know, somebody asked me a minute ago, are you going to be able to read that? And I wrote it in black magic marker so I can kind of refer to my notes. But isn't it amazing what Carol has done? You know, we see her, we're around her, and then when you go over something like that, the sheer immensity of her accomplishments is just pretty staggering to all of us. So, yes, it is. You all know who Carol Rose is, and many of you know her well. But since I'm the one that gets to be up here, I want to tell you about the Carol Rose that I have come to know. And our history began about 16, 17 years ago. I'd known her before that through working with her on the NRBC and some other projects. And I'd gotten kind of know this very complex person. And I worked with her then as we started to, I started to run the National Rein Cow Horse Association, and she was very involved. So we got together, started working together then, and we've worked together for 11 years. And as I got to know Carol, you know, if you know her a little bit, you know she's driven, she's intense, she has a tremendous work ethic. And for me, that was great. I had somebody that I could call at 4:30 in the morning, and she was up, and she'd already had a cup of coffee, and she was going. You know, that's Carol. She's that way. So early into our relationship, I'm like, well, I've gotten to know her pretty well now. I can ask her a few things. And the thing I wanted to ask her is, Carol, what is the single most important thing to your success? And she looked at me and like, well, Cheryl, she looked at me and said, everything is important. Everything matters. And I was like, well, okay, you know, I got that. But the more I got to know her, the more I realized that that wasn't just something she said, that's something she lived. That was something every day. No detail was too small for Carol for it to be important. I'll give you an example of that. We had been working together for a while, and I don't really remember whether it was an NRHA thing or a cow horse thing or something, but a mailing had gone out. And Carol called my office and talked to one of the girls. And that girl came into my office and said, Cheryl, Carol is really upset. She talked to me and she said, clearly we weren't paying attention to detail. We weren't worried about how we represented ourselves. We needed to tighten up the ship. We had really messed up. And I'm like, well, what we did, what was it? She said, the label on her envelope was crooked. It's true. And everything's important. Everything is how you represent yourself. Everything is important. I will tell you that after that, when we'd have a mailing, those girls would look up and get to Carol's address, and they'd bring the label into my office and say, here, you put it on. Make sure it's straight. Everything is important. And I'll give you another example. We put on these Rain Cow Horse shows, and in the Rain Cow Horse shows, you don't have banners because a steer could hit it and tear it off the fence if it was a banner. So they have these signs, you know, that are these big 4x8 heavy signs. And I had guys out there whose job was to put up the signs, and it's pretty tedious detail. And so I look out in the arena, and my sign guys are just kind of standing there, kind of shooting the breeze, and the signs are propped up against the fence. So I go out there and I said, hey guys, why are we just standing around? And they said, well, Carol's got to get here and tell us where she wants them. And it's true. And everything's important. You know, it really was important that one sponsor's sign wasn't next to another sponsor's sign that diminished how it looked. There wasn't a sponsor sign in the curve where the cows went up to make them maybe turn back because it was too bright a color or too white or whatever. Everything is important. And I can't tell you how much those little things mattered, and everything does matter if you want to be the best, if you want to excel, if you want to be everything that you can be, and she did, and she still does. If you approach life like that, with that mindset, halfway, our crooked labels, our signs in the wrong order, our lesser commitment, all of those things are never enough. You can do better. She made me and my staff better and stronger for knowing her. And about 5 years ago, when I married the cute guy that's sitting at her table, I decided that I didn't want to do so many shows. I had a reason to stay home after all these years. So I stopped doing the Rain Cow Horse shows. And to tell the truth, had the cute guy at home. So I didn't really miss the shows, but I did miss Carol. I had learned so much from her, and she made me be better. And I love her for that. Now I've got to tell you one more thing, that everybody that's ever been around Carol and gone to dinner with her and gone out and partied, and she is fun. There is nobody more fun to go out with and have fun with than Carol Rose. She is amazing. But we of our special club that have ever been out with her know one thing. And I told Philip Cody, but when he came tonight, I said, just go stand at the table and wait. And the thing was, you wait until she tells you where to sit. Because it's important to Carol, just like everything else in her life. She wants you to have a good time. She wants you to enjoy the guy next to you. She wants the whole thing to flow. It matters. Everything matters for my friend Carol Rose. It always has, and it always will. So please join me in welcoming this newest member to the NRHA Hall of Fame. a very special person.
Ladies and gentlemen, Carol Rose.
Thanks, Jennifer. Is this thing set for me?
Probably not. Oh,
Maybe down.
she's all worried about where the mic goes. How shocking.
I don't know where the mic's supposed to go.
Okay, is that perfect?
That's
Is
perfect.
it good? All right.
You know, thank you very much. I'm going to start by saying I've received lots of wonderful honors. I've never had to use notes before, but I see Jennifer using notes, and I see Cheryl using notes, and Tim didn't use any notes, and I probably have to use notes, so I just wanted to make that clear. Anyway, I want to thank the Hall of Fame Committee of the National Reining Horse Association for this tremendous honor. It's, you know, it's so unbelievable when you get honored for what you do all your life. I mean, horses are my life, and my life have been my horses, and when you receive these kinds of honors for doing what you do, it's just like you never in your wildest dreams ever think about that. So thank you, NRHA, and all of you, and thank all of you for being here tonight. It's just a huge honor. And Cheryl, thank you very, very much. Thank you very much for your introduction. Cheryl and I had a wonderful, wonderful time. Now to tell you a little bit about me, and this is hard for me to talk about myself, but I started riding horses when I was 5, and it was kind of a playtime for me. I started showing when I was 5, riding before that. And we'd go to the show, and we'd play, and I'd wave at all my friends in the stands, and I didn't really get serious about it until I was 8. But before I go any further, I want to proudly introduce the guests at my table. First, my wonderful sister, the only family member that I have, and I don't know what I'd do without her, Ann Ramsey. Is over here. Ann has been with me all the way on these horses, and she loves them, and she's been with me at every award that I've received, and I don't know what I'd do without her. With Ann is the closest family friend I've ever had. He's the person most like a brother I've never had. Please meet Steve Kimball. Steve is originally from England. Steve. There's a very special couple here tonight. There's a man that I've spent more time than I want to with the last 3.5 years. I want you to meet Lou Stevens, my attorney, and his wonderful wife, Sue. And of course, you met Cheryl Cody and her husband, Philip. And also joining us tonight, the lady that's kept our Carol Rose quarter horses in the magazines and in the forefront, and has done a wonderful job for a long, long time. I don't even know how many years, but it's been a long time. Cam Essick from California. And then tonight, I'm so honored to have Sam Rose's wife, my stepdaughter-in-law, Pam Rose, and her daughter, my granddaughter, Kristen Rose, right here. a few more. A man here tonight that none of us can do without, and I certainly can't do without him, and I haven't done without him, and he's helped with all the honors that I've received. He's been there, and he's made it all, a lot of it possible. Joe Carter, Dr. Joe Carter. With Joe are 4 of his assistants that are here working for the National Range Cow Horse Association show that started today. Eileen, Drew, and Jackie. I don't know their last names, but thanks for being here, guys. And lastly, 2 of my dearest friends, people that I don't know what I would have done without and what I would do without. A girl that worked for me for 10 years, Nikki Miller, and one of my dearest friends and a lady that's helped me so much, especially with my latest injuries, Diane Beckman. So I said that I never, when I was 8, I was never serious about anything until I was 8. And I was riding horses since then all my life. I've ridden horses, rode horses, showed horses. I showed every kind of horse. I had wonderful horses growing up. No, they weren't quarter horses, they were just horses, but we didn't have trainers. I grew up during the time. They were the greatest horsemen in the whole world, and I was kind of a bratty, fast-talking kid that just never forget to ask. I would always ask questions if I was having trouble, and all these great horsemen were always there to answer me. And I'm so blessed that I grew up during that time. I showed horses nonstop from the time, seriously, the time I was 8 until I moved to Texas in 1965 when I was 24. So I showed cutting horses at that time, and in the early 70s I was really tired of going up and down the road so much and driving so many miles. And I said I never wanted to breed a horse because it took too long. Gestation was too long, and I just was interested in showing. But early 70s, I decided I wanted to start a breeding farm. I was married to Matlock Rose, and he wasn't very fond of that, but I said, come on, we can do this. I'm tired of showing, and we can still show, but I want to start a breeding farm. I had a great cutting mare at the time named Gaybar's Gin. I had won 4 NCHA Non-Pro World Championships on her, and she was by Gaybar King. And so I wanted to breed her to Dock Bar, and I did. And in 1977, the result of that cross was a horse that I raised named Genuine Dock. So early in the 80s, I acquired a mare named Diamond Sparkle. That was probably the best acquisition I've ever made. And in 1982, 1983, I had a yearling filly named Sparkles Rosanna. And when she was a 2-year-old, Bob Loomis was moving to Oklahoma from Nebraska. And Bob spent quite a bit of time at my house. He'd stay there sometimes so he didn't have to have a hotel while he was building his house. And Bob said, Carol, I think you should have that mare trained and show her in the reining fraternity. Well, I didn't know much about the reining or the fraternity. And so I said, well, Bob, would you train her? And he said, I can't because Topsail Cody's first foals will be 3 next year in '85, but I can introduce you to Craig Johnson. He said, Craig's moving here from Iowa, and he'll probably need to keep some horses at your place. And so he said, the only thing you won't like, as fast as you move, he said, when Craig walks from the house to the barn, I don't know, I can't remember if Bob said he moved like a caterpillar or a snail, but it was one of the two. But Craig did a wonderful job, and in 1985, he won the NRHA fraternity on Sparkles Rosanna in Ohio. Well, Bobby Lewis was working for me then, and we went to the Congress to watch the finals, and of course, nobody knew us, and we didn't know anybody, but when Craig showed and had such a high score, people were sitting around us. Zan Parbar, who are Carol Rose, who'd ever heard of these people? And who'd ever heard of that horse? And we loved listening to all this stuff because nobody knew who we were. So in 1985, I can officially say that I was introduced to the reining, the NRHA reining, and my horse bloodlines were also introduced to the reining because I was raising horses that weren't necessarily reining horses, they were just performance horses. And I wanted to raise horses that would show in every event, and just happened that reining was one of them. But that cross between Diamond Sparkle and Zam Parbar also, in 1987, we raised a horse called Zan's Diamond Sun, who was third in the fraternity, and he won the Derby in 1989. And then we also raised Sparkle's Susanna from the same cross that was fourth in the fraternity in 1988. And Zan's Diamond Sun was the youngest sire ever of an NRHA world champion named Sundappled. So immediately, we were pretty proud of what we were producing for the reining, but again, we were producing these horses to do every event, not just the reining, but the reining they were very good at. So in 1989, you'll see why I'm getting to this. In 1987, Zam Parbar died. And so we had Diamond Sparkle, and we didn't have any idea what we were going to breed her to. And we thought about every horse, whether it be a reining horse or a cutting horse, and you know, we just didn't know. And we had this young stud named Genuine Doc that we'd raised. So we decided to breed her to Genuine Doc, and the result of that was Shining Spark. So guys, you never know where the good one's going to come from. I mean, we didn't plan that breeding. We didn't plan it to be a reiner. And when Shining Spark was growing up, of course, we started him to be just a broke horse, and then we started him on cattle. Maybe we wanted to do the cutting, and we decided maybe the cutters wouldn't take him seriously. Maybe the reiners wouldn't take him seriously. I mean, who were going to get to ride him? And it was a lot of we didn't know what to do, and I wanted to ride and keep him close to home. So lo and behold, we picked Bob Loomis to ride him, and Bob did a wonderful job. And you know, you all know about Shining Spark. So in 1996, backing up a little bit, I was so proud when Diamond Sparkle was nominated and inducted into the NRHA Hall of Fame. I mean, that was a thrill. I had nothing to do with her show career, but I had a lot to do with her producing career, and she wasn't through yet, but it was a big thrill. So in 2004, I did a foal trade with Andre de Bellefille. And the resulting foal trade with that was, by bred foal trade, I bred Sassy Olena. And the result of that cross was Shiny and Sassy. And we started Shiny and Sassy at our ranch, and Chris Dawson was working for me then, and he started her, and she was really, really bronky. And he said, you know, I think this mare is so good, we need a trainer for the reining, and you need to send her to Tim McQuay. So we talked to Tim, and he said, well, I'll look at her, but it's, you know, maybe April of her 3-year-old year. And the morning that Chris was supposed to take her over there, she bucked Chris off. She was really, really bronky, but a lot of the cross of Shining Spark on the Dr. Lena mares resulted in a lot of bronky horses. And so I said, well, you've already ridden her, just go ahead and take her. And so he took her, and I was working in the breeding barn, and Chris came back in a couple hours, and I was still in the breeding barn, and he said, did Tim call you? And I said, no, why? And he said, well, he kept the mare. 6 months later, she was, I think it's 6 months, or anyway, however many months from April till, I guess it was 8 months, April till December, she won the 2008 NRHA reining fraternity, and thank you, Tim. It was just unbelievable awesome. You know, to raise 2 fraternity champions and know that those horses can go on and do different events, and Sparkle's Rosanna went on to be a world champion in the AQHA, in the rein cow horse, in the heading and the calf roping. And these horses I've raised, I've been so proud because they could do so many things. Excuse me, now I have to look down. You know, nobody achieves what I've achieved by themselves. Nobody does that. And I've had a tremendous team around me. And there are so many people that I owe a thank you to. And there's so many here tonight, and there's so many in the industry. But there's some very, very special people that I have to thank and tell them how I couldn't have done this without them. And that's the first are Tim and Colleen McQuay and Mandy. You guys have been just every time I hired a new trainer, which was way more than I wanted to, Tim would say, just send them over, just send them over. And I mean, he helped everybody that ever worked for me with the reining horses. And some of them, he said, you know, if I'd known they were going to leave, I wouldn't have helped them. But he was just remarkable. And he helped me a lot when I was showing and riding. And I promise you, Tim's horses are so broke that my little dogs could ride them around. And I wish I had done a better job, but I made lots of mistakes. But it's just phenomenal. And another one I really want to thank, I learned so much from, was Dwayne Latimer. And of course, Chris Dawson. Chris is just, I'm still today have horses with Chris Dawson, and he's a fabulous young man, did a wonderful job in the reining, and now he's concentrating on rein cow horses. But there's two people here tonight that are such special friends. They've been so involved with the reining for so many years, and they've mean so much to me, and they've done so much for me, and they've also done so much for all of you. Please, Bob and Linda Kaiser. You all know Bob and Linda. And the first time I met Linda, 1989, I was showing at the Lazy E. I showed Sparkles Rosanna, and I went into the office to get my credentials to show, and she looked at me and she said, "Are you Christy Rose's mother?" I mean, she had no idea who I was, and I didn't know who had any idea who Christy Rose was. Yeah, but it was fun. She told me that I drew last, and I said, "Oh, I want to go first." But, you know, I had the only people at that horse show that knew that I knew how to ride were John Hoyt and Jack Kyle. So everybody there was really concerned. Did I know the pattern? Did I know how to ride? And of course, it was, you know, it was fun because if I did badly, I was a newcomer, so it wouldn't have made any difference. But I had fun, and I won the first time I ever showed in the NRHA, and it was really, really fun. But I want to say one thing that's so important to me. The first time I ever saw an NRHA reining was at the Congress in 1967. That's 50 years ago. And I want to say kudos to the breeders, the owners, and the trainers of our great reining horses. That industry has come so far in 50 years. You know, the horses that we're breeding are doing their job. I love the judging program of the NRHA. I think it's the best there is, and I see it all. And the trainers are doing a marvelous job, and these horses are doing what they're bred to do, and it's just a marvelous industry and the greatest discipline I've ever seen in the modern day horse world. And lastly, I got to tell you, people ask me all the time, "Carol, what keeps you going? What drives you? Why have you done this for so many years?" And I got to tell you, the most exciting thing is to helping, assisting, aiding those foals to be born. Watching them grow up, raising them, having them trained, watching them show, watching them win, and watching some of them win a lot more than others, but it's still it's just a phenomenal feeling. And then to take those same horses and put them back in the breeding barn, whether it be a stud or a mare, and watch them produce and watch what they produce and watch their kids show. It's just like watching your grandkids grow up, and anybody that doesn't have a thrill of that isn't human. It's a feeling I can't describe, but that's what's kept me going all these years. Now I am, I'm not saying I'm retired, I'm retiring. And I still have a few horses. I've had 600 at the most, and right now I have 15. And I do have a fraternity horse, NRHA fraternity horse for this year, and I have some coming up. So you're still going to see me around a while, just not as often, and I'm officially retired from breeding any mares. It's been a great ride, and I can't thank you all enough for all the kind words and all the, it's just, I don't know how to say thank you, but thank you very, very much. Was that